Thanks to innovation, we have vegan cheese, meat, yogurt, chicken, and your earthly desires for a plant-based future. But how does this relate to vegan capitalism? Well, this is a complex issue that I've been wanting to talk about in the vegan space, and let's talk about it today. Before we get started, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. This actually helps me grow my channel. Plant-based industries are on the rise every year, and we are seeing the launch of new brands worldwide. According to a new report by the Bloomberg Intelligence, the plant-based food market could make up to 7.7% of the global protein market by 2030, with the value of over $162 billion, up from $29.4 billion in 2020. Industries like Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods, and Oatly are driving an increase in plant-based food options as they partner with restaurants and major chains. There is no denying that plant-based industries are hitting a cultural shift, and for that very same reason, I feel that it makes me happy to see people divesting away from animal-based products. In fact, more consumers turned to plant-forward diets during the pandemic to support their overall health. Package Facts May 2022 National Online Consumer Survey indicated that 30% of consumers still eat more fresh produce than pre-pandemic. Regarding the ages for vegans, vegetarians and flexitarians are more likely to be younger in the 1844 age, encompassing Generation Z and Millennial consumers. Younger consumers are more likely to value healthy, fresh, and open to exploring new products. In contrast, the 65 and age up is the least likely to follow a vegetarian or vegan diet, which I'd hope we can shift that conversation for that demographic too. My biggest concern about vegan capitalism is the language used around the phrase, the future of food is plants. While as much as we can agree that we'd love to see a sustainable food system that does not center the needs for non-human animals' exploitation, how much of this food system is actually ethical? I align with the term food sovereignty and food justice because the future of food systems should be held within the people, not corporations. Now, I'm not trying to say that these small vegan businesses are evil, especially small-owned businesses that are trying to contribute to society, but we shouldn't be relying on these technocratic solutions as an end-all be-all. As mentioned in my previous video, the truth is that agribusiness and industrial meat are still profitable. We have meat companies providing plant-based options under the guise of providing alternatives, but the truth is that it is antithesis to what veganism stands for as a liberation-led movement. We need to talk about who currently holds the larger power over food supply chain systems, which is food titans. We can't talk about food systems' future without addressing race, class, and gender. And when I see these conversations not talk about it, I think about what does that future of food look to them. The rhetoric often put out there is that within industrial agriculture is that it's what gives us adequate and nutritious food to the American people. However, countless studies have shown that small farmers still contribute a large portion of feeding the world. To be exact, a study noted that smallhold farmers provide around 1/3 of the world's food. In my other video about the environmental impact of industrial agriculture, we found out that the food system is heavily unsustainable regarding the heavy uses of pesticides, worker exploitation, and transportation. Vegan capitalism is closely similar to the term green capitalism in that it views that the future of capital can exist within plants and innovations like cellular agriculture, lab-grown meat, and GMO plants. Vegan capitalism also highlights eliminating non-human animals in food, fashion, and resource supply chains. But the truth is that I feel that food, land, and seed sovereignty are still missing in these conversations around the future of plant-based food systems. In my experience attending food summits, expos, and conferences, every conversation around plant-based foods fails in diversity. There are hardly any BIPOC, queer people, trans people, women representation out there. And when I see that plant-based food industries are not interested in DEI or mentioning race in their conversations about the future of food, it's an issue for me. What they are saying is that food is not political, and food has always been political, and choosing to be apolitical shows that plant-based industries want to stay silent. Yes, non-human animals are presented as a strong case for liberation. I feel that where we fall short as a community and industry is asking how are we making sure that we are truly representing the future of food when it's been predominantly white cis men that have led these conversations. Also, can we talk about how certain vegan companies have worked with financial asset management institutions that are directly linked to environmental degradation and also exploit their marginalized workers? How is this a sustainable future when we're still seeing the same existing systems being replicated in the plant-based food industry? Before we start with the following case studies and examples, I would like to ensure that these are all alleged reports and merely my opinion. Oat milk, Amazon, rainforest, and deforestation. What? Let's talk about the controversy with a beloved brand we all know, known as Oatly. Oatly is a Swedish food company that produces alternatives to dairy products from oats. You may have seen their milk, ice cream, or creamer brand, and Oatly was formed in actually the 1990s and has grown in popularity over the last 10 years. They're even known for their creative ads, which I'm going to give it to them. I really love their ads and creative team. I loved their product, and no judgment if you still consume them, but they've been on the headlines for a few years now with some controversial deals they've had. Back in 2020, Oatly had sold a minority of $200 million stake to a group of high-profile investors like Oprah Winfrey and Jay-Z in a deal that values the fashionable Swedish brand at $2 billion. Within those investments was the American private equity firm Blackstone. Blackstone is a private equity business that operates in America. Now remember the name Blackstone because this is what left many consumers angry about what Oatly had done and why they accepted their investments. According to an article published by The Guardian, Blackstone was linked to the deforestation of the Amazon rainforest in Brazil. Now, this is where it gets actually bigger and a bit confusing. So, two Brazilian firms actively contributing to deforestation are owned by donors like Trump and Mitch McConnell. These firms helped build a controversial highway to improve the transportation and exportation of grain and soybeans. And the shipping terminal in Mirituba, deep in the Amazon in the Brazilian state of Pará, allows growers to load soybeans on barges which then sail to a larger port before the cargo is shipped around the world. Now, the Amazon terminal is run by Hidrovis do Brasil, a large company owned by Blackstone, a major US investment firm. And another Blackstone company, Patria Investimentos, owns more than 50% of Hidrovis, while Blackstone itself directly owns an additional roughly 10% of that stake. The BlackRock's co-founder CEO said that, this actually information was untrue, and they denied this accusation by saying the following. The erroneous claims that mischaracterizations were blatantly wrong and irresponsible. The company reiterated its position that Hidrovis was not involved in the road through the Amazon rainforest used to forest on soy-grown, illegally deforested land. The interesting part about this is that regardless of whether this is untrue, Blackstone still oversees $260 billion worth of fossil fuel assets. So Oatly even admitted that, they said the following: it also steers that capital would have gone to a different commercial investment into sustainability, so they said that it is better. I remember a few years ago reading this in 2020 and thinking that, it would have gone to another exploitative company, which could have been true. But at the same time, Oatly, as a sustainability company, in the way that it marketed itself in fighting for climate change, it goes against this ideology that they are trying to build a sustainable world. Like, why would you take money from an existing entity that is contributing to the deforestation and the deaths of indigenous communities and the deaths of biodiversity? It doesn't make any sense to me. Now, this is the huge critique and issue I have with Oatly, because they are a company that pounces on their mission of sustainability. There's also a recent video posted by my great friend, that's going to be shown here, talks about Oatly and their slave labor supply chain, which I highly recommend watching that video. On their website, they list the following. At Oatly, we are over 1,600 humans with sustainability as one of our core values, and we aim to drive a systemic shift in society in the ways that we produce, eat food, and also treat the planet, where people can make small changes like switching to plant-based foods that improve their lives and ensure a healthy planet for future generations. And I agree that Oatly isn't positioning itself as the only solution out there, but I do think that trying to redesign a food system while still acknowledging that the investments that you are receiving are unethical. The last straw for me was last year when Oatly appeared in the headlines. Again, they were suing this small-owned business called Pure Oatly, and they had said that it was infringing on their own trademark. Farmer Philip Raymer, who owns Gleb Farm, said that Pure Oatly was a nod to the purity of the product. Mr. Rayner said that his company began producing the beverage using British farmed oats about 18 months ago. And still, Oatly wanted Gleb Farms to stop using the name Pure Oatly brand and change its packaging. And when you look at the two brands actually on the left and right side, you'll see that the similar thing that they have is just the color blue. And we've seen this tactic actually be used With monopolies and large-scale corporations, if they're not able to actually buy out the companies, they actually sue the companies until they don't have enough money in legal representation that they're forced to shut down. And this is actually how capitalism works. It's about actually who can gain the most political and economic power in this food market. Monopolies are bad because they control the market in which they do business, meaning they have no competitors. When a company has no competitors, consumers have no choice but to buy from the monopoly. The company has no check on its power to raise prices or lower the quality of its product or service. We are still in the early years of seeing these plant-based industries grow, where they aren't in a position to be called monopolies yet, but we know that large-scale industrial animal-based companies can absorb these companies for their ongoing issues. This is where vegan capitalism manifests itself, is that I don't think Oatly is the best company out there. Sure, it's more ethical than dairy and meat brands out there, but I also feel that it holds these brands to a higher standard because one's liberation cannot be built with the same oppressor who is continually plundering ecosystems. I do understand that small-owned brands struggle to scale in the industrial market, but how can we ensure that vegan companies pledge to not take any investment money from agribusiness or fossil fuel companies? I feel that Oatly over the past few years has lost my confidence in believing their messaging. They have a great marketing team because of what they put out there, but they aren't interested in being sustainable rather than flexing this idea of vegan capitalism. Truth be told, I don't think animal liberation can work when you're taking money from exploitive intuitions that are still oppressing those sentient beings. Case study number 2, No Evil Foods. Now, No Evil Foods is a plant-based company that ranges from plant-based chicken, chorizo, and sausages and other alternatives. The company was established back in 2014. They were focused on changing the food system for people, animals, and the environment. But the truth is that I had some questions about them from the early days. Okay, so many of you have been asking me my true thoughts on the alleged cases that have been coming out about this brand. I don't know, first of all, I don't even know why they use socialist theme messaging and branding. To me, any brand that uses revolutionary type messaging or marketing themes are literally whitewashing history. Here is an image from their Instagram from 2019. I was angry when I saw the brand name because it literally says on one of the brands, El Zapatista. Like, what? Mind you, both of these owners, the founders, are white, and to remind you that the history of the Zapatistas movements is that they were fighting against and to instigate a revolution against the rise of neoliberalism throughout Mexico. They used their uprising as a platform to call attention to their movement to protest the signing of NAFTA, which is the EZLN, believed that would increase inequality in Chiapas. And as someone who is from Mexican descent and their parents are from Mexico, neoliberal laws like NAFTA actually destroyed a lot of rural farmer areas. And so when I see them using the term Zapatista or even abolitionist type language like Comrade Chicken, I kind of start to question like what history do they know, because Zapatista movements actually was anti-capitalist. They were actually for migrant farm workers, for the peasants who grew our food. And I start to kind of question like, do they have the right to use this type of social messaging when they're not culturally attuned to those types of movements? So anyways, that was one of like my original first red flags, is that how can a brand put themselves with this type of messaging when they literally haven't contributed to those communities? In early 2020, No Evil Foods fought a union drive at its Weaverville, North Carolina plant that included numerous captive audience meetings where management told workers to vote against the union. There is a video online of No Evil Foods CEO and co-founder Mike Wolanski repeatedly imploring workers to vote no in the union election, telling workers that a union could hamper the company's ability to save lives and change the world. Now, this video was the first of 7 mandatory anti-union meetings held at NEF. Just over a year after crushing the unionization effort, No Evil Foods fired the entire production team without warning or severance and outsourced their jobs to a third-party co-packer. Thanks to the union org, Mo Evil Foods has been highlighting, researching, and taking direct experiences of their times at No Evil Foods. They have dedicated this amount of resources and evidence of this company actually being involved in exploitative practices. No Evil Foods plastered the production facility with vote no posters and anti-union propaganda. They had several mandatory union meetings, and they also exploited the fears of sexual harassment, job insecurity, union dues, and union corruption. Lastly, they targeted union supporters after the union effort was crushed. Although No Evil Foods has made statements that this is false and untrue, I actually was a bit concerned to see in the videos the way that workers were talking. And, I understand that there's sometimes both sides of the story, but when you have a large group of individuals that are actually expressing concerns about the company's mission and what they were doing, you can't stop to think that I won't defend a corporation first, because a corporation is a non-human logo. It doesn't exist. I'm going to go for the people to help them. And so I really suggest all of you to actually look at the alleged reports on both ends, just because I think this was actually the last straw I had with No Evil Foods. And I do think that their new branding doesn't show this socialist type of messaging as much. But I do have a lot of questions for them. And I don't think they'll ever have those questions or actually want to have those active conversations with people. Yet again, I see this example from No Evil Foods being Vegan Capitalism, a business with a mission to provide these plant-based options using socially justice-oriented messaging, and yet having allegations of exploitation and mistreatment. You can't call yourself vegan if the people packing and producing your food are being exploited. Now, whether you believe the allegations or not, make sure to do your own study on that, because that is a long conversation that still needs to be held. Case study number 3, Amy's Kitchen. Now, before vegans tell me that Amy's Kitchen isn't a vegan business, you're right. It's true, they're vegetarian, organic businesses, but most of the products that they do sell to us are vegan, and they actually position themselves within their marketing team to be a plant-based food business, which is why I'm considering them in this video. Amy's Kitchen is one of the country's top producers of vegetarian canned and frozen foods, with about $600 million in sales in 2020, and has a reputation as a socially responsible company. In March, Amy's Kitchen received a certification as B Corp, a designation for these nonprofits to work and for-profits to actually be this ethical supply chain. Back in January 2022, workers at Amy's Kitchen filed an official complaint of working conditions. In an article published by the NBC, one worker allegedly said that the workers could not use the restroom or even access clean drinking water during their fast-paced shifts because of pressure to maintain line speeds. The complaint also described locked fire exits, worn out floor mats, and lack of proper training for tasks like heavy lifting and operating heavy machinery. The complaint said workers experience hostility when they bring it up to upper management. And the detailed complaints listed how workers were forced to work at faster speeds, hurting their shoulders, and Amy's Kitchen responded by saying that the recordable injury rate at its Santa Rosa plant is 2 times better than an industry average for food manufacturing. The workers who spoke with NBC News said that their supervisors had downplayed their injuries and shared medical documents detailing work-related injuries, and this made me so furious when I saw this. When I actually created some of these videos that you'll see here on Instagram and TikTok to start to boycott the brand, and also organizations like Food Empowerment Project raise awareness by creating this strategic messaging, Amy's Kitchen kind of responded to this idea that the information about worker exploitation was untrue. Now, I later got contacted by Teamsters. They are a labor union organization that fights for truck drivers and restaurant individuals, mainly in the food industry. And I got on this Zoom call with 3 women. They were Latina, and they look like brown women, like my mother. Some of the stories they told me were super horrific. I was furious. One of the women literally told me that she didn't have enough money to pay her rent because insurances at Amy Kitchen were increased. And this actually, I think a lot of workers get insurance benefits, but she said, what was the difference of getting a more expensive insurance from the company when I can't even pay my bills? They don't even pay me higher. And that made me mad, because I'm someone who grew up in poverty that realized how much my parents struggled to even afford their medical bills when they were still being exploited by the same working industries that said that they cared for them. The second woman really broke my heart. She literally is a mom, and she had to get multiple surgeries on her left shoulder. And she told me, the saddest thing is that she couldn't even hug her own daughter that wanted to play with her because she was in so much pain when she would come from work. And no mom or no parent should ever have to see that. The fact that you tell your child, I can't play with you because work is exploiting me, that made me furious. And the other woman told me, like, look, I love this company. I stand for their values. I think they're really great people. I believe in the CEO, but we're not here to make it a controversial issue. We're just saying, hey, we're taking this to public notice because all your team is actually disregarding us and we need to be heard. And she even told me, like, we don't want people to not buy their products. We want people to buy their products and to enjoy the food, but we want people to know that the way that we're being treated is not right, and we deserve, as a simple human right issue, to be treated with respect. And I think that was really the icing on the cake for me to throw it back at Amy's Kitchen and be like, no, I'm done with their PR statements. I'm done with their social media channels trying to create this messaging. And I'm done with the CEO that doesn't necessarily care to that extent, because truth be told, like, the stories that the workers told me on that Zoom call were completely horrific. Like, I actually cried on the Zoom call because I thought about my mom, I thought about my siblings, I thought about my parents, my grandparents who had to work in a lot of exploitative industries. And so it's not fair for a brand that has this like nice B Corp logo and to pounce to the fact that we're a family-oriented business, we care about this. It's like, you only care about a certain amount of people in your life. You don't care about people who look like me. You don't care about the black people. You don't care about indigenous people. What are you doing to actually create change? And, I use my platform to call them out. I realize that perhaps not many people would agree with this case, but I think as influencers myself with the privilege and a platform, if I'm able to align myself with labor rights organizations calling out these corporations, I do have the power and say to change those conversations. While the fight for a transformative food system requires multi-layered levels of solutions, there are concerns about whether or not plant-based food industries are truly rooted in justice-led movements. Food has either been used as a tool to nourish or oppress marginalized communities of colors by settlers. So are all brands complicit of vegan capitalism? No, I'm not trying to say that. I don't think so. And this is where this conversation is actually more nuanced. I'm not saying that vegan businesses don't deserve to be in this market of food systems, especially when we know the amount of non-vegan brands that have exploited non-human animals and humans. But I do hold vegan companies to a higher level of accountability because I believe their missions have always been rooted in the animals, environment, and people. I think it's worth saying that the conversations around liberation have not come out of buying ourselves, but rather using the people's resistance to create change pathways. Vegan capitalism is dangerous because it sells the guise of liberation and allows for impurities, but that shouldn't be the case for these companies being founded on sustainability. We must remember, veganism isn't about having thousands of plant-based products while non-human animals and humans are still suffering in supply chains. It's about recognizing that we can still make certain options accessible and dismantle harmful, oppressive, industrialized systems still slaughtering non-human animals. We still need to recognize that plant-based companies are making active conversations to programs and resources to work with vegans, but we need more representation. And so in my view about global capitalism, it hinders the progression towards vegan liberation. And if plant-based industries continue to side with these industrialized, heavy corporatized institutions, what does that mean for the future of food? Does the future of food actually look small, ethical, and sustainable, or does it look like certain vegan companies controlling our food supply chain? That is my biggest concern for the future, and I don't think I'm trying to be controversial here because I'm not trying to cancel out one industry or the other, but I do believe that if there's issues coming out with vegan companies, they need to be able to bring in the whole community together to have a conversation rather behind closed doors of someone said this, someone said that. There needs to be evidence that's put out there, and I think we as content creators or those who are watching, we can boycott these industries not by actively questioning them, but by not buying their products and saying we're going to choose a different product that is actually rooted in worker rights, animal rights, environmental rights. So let me know your thoughts about vegan capitalism, because I'm actually interested in hearing what you all have to say. If you enjoyed this video about vegan capitalism, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps my work every time that you all subscribe, and I'm trying to grow my channel this upcoming 2023 to provide more accessible, environmentally justice education.